Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode or another session of Mechanic Meditations. This is number 3 in our series. And the previous ones we went over, let's see. Number 1, why did you or do you want to become a mechanic? And number 2, that was honesty. What is an honest mechanic? And today I wanted to talk about or kind of compare the differences or perceptions of a mechanic versus a technician. And this is kind of a point of contention within the auto repair industry. A lot of mechanics or a lot of auto repair professionals, let's just use the generic term, auto repair professionals nowadays like the term technician. I prefer the term mechanic. And I think there's a difference between the two, and I'll go into that a little bit. So I'll start with the word technician. The the reasoning that a lot of auto repair professionals prefer the term technician is because of the level of complexity and level of modernity and refinement and let's see and technical knowledge needed to repair modern vehicles. The modern vehicle is not a plain 100% mechanical object, 100% mechanical contraption. It is a mechanical, electrical, computerized, electronic hybrid. It's a amalgamation of all kinds of different philosophies. You have the mechanical philosophy, which is all the moving parts, all the physical moving parts, and the body structure and all that. You have the electrical system, which has become extremely advanced from its original 6 volt systems, and then back in the 40s and 50s we switched over to 12 volt and became a little bit more refined, but still simplistic. And all the way up until about the mid 70s is when the mid 70s is when it started becoming more complicated, and the early 80s is when electrical systems became extremely complicated. If you look at a wiring diagram for a vehicle made from, well, 1975 ish, depending on the car, to 1980, that 5 year period, you can see that the electrical system just the technological leaps and bounds was dramatic. It was on order of magnitude instead of just little gradual steps. And the electronic system. So we had electronics in vehicles from the mid 60s, depending on the make, with early to mid 60s up until between early and mid 60s and the mid 70s, we started to see electronic systems. Chrysler had its electronic ignition system, a little chrome box that was bolted to the firewall, that you can get for $15 now at pretty much any parts store. You can get a generic one, but back then that was advanced technology, and even Chrysler had a rudimentary fuel injection system, electronic fuel injection. They took the technology that they developed for the U.S. military when they were a contractor for the Air Force, and they condensed it down into this like, it was bolted to plywood. It had a plywood base, and it was about maybe 14 inches by 10 inches, and it had circuit boards and capacitors and all kinds of stuff on it. There's only like 2 prototypes, and I think one was destroyed, another one was found. I have in one of my many magazines, I've got an article about it. So electronics came into vogue in the mid 60s to mid 70s, depending on the make. So, getting back to the technician thing, a lot of auto repair professionals prefer the term technician because of all that is required to work on today's vehicles. And I do not, absolutely do not, discount them. I don't think that they're wrong. I don't think that they're they have a point. They do have a point. The modern vehicle, I've heard that every year for automotive engineering and research and development and all that stuff, something on the order of 750,000 pages minimum is generated every year for research and development, technological advancement, engineering documents, all that stuff. So 750,000 pages of information, and it's probably up to 1,000,000 pages of information, and this is spread across all the manufacturers and such. That's developed every year for making new cars. Now that's just the raw data. Obviously, it needs to be distilled and refined and passed down through the chain to where it becomes service information, technical service bulletins, recalls, that kind of stuff. But even at a rate of if only 10% of that information gets refined down to service info, that's 75,000 pages of information that is disseminated across all the makes that technicians need to know on a yearly basis. That's how much information is put out on a yearly basis, and all technicians are expected to learn it. That's quite a lot of information. So I do not discount the idea of calling ourselves technicians. It's my beef with it is an emotional thing. So emotional and philosophical visual. The imagery of the word. I don't like the word technician. To me it is cold. To me it is sterile. To me it is faceless almost. Because when I think of the word technician, I think of some nameless automaton, that a personalityless thing, an organic machine going around and just servicing what needs to be serviced in a feelingless, in a connectionless sort of way. Think of some sci-fi movies that you've seen where you just see some dude, an androgynous being. You don't know if it's male or female. You don't know what it is. You just know that it's vaguely human. They might have their hair pulled back or no hair at all. They're wearing a bunny suit where only their face is visible and the rest is just like a mylar polyester mix where they have, it's just gray. You don't. That's what I see in my mind when I hear the word technician. And again, we're coming down to a emotional connection. We're coming down to a philosophical connection. This is my philosophical and emotional connection to the word technician. That's why I prefer the word mechanic. Mechanic, to me, the word mechanic originated hundreds of years ago during the first industrial revolution, when we started going from strictly human labor with rudimentary machines, simple machines, to steam-powered machines, to water-powered machines, water-powered, steam-powered, horse-powered, not quite man-powered. We've moved on from them, but with these machines of iron, wrought iron, and cast iron, and steel, and these gigantic behemoths with huge water wheels and steam turbines and boilers and all this stuff. And you've all seen probably the pictures of Victorian era mechanical workers covered in soot, covered in coal dust, sweaty, working in shirts like this, skivvies, all the way up to it's a hard word, railroad workers, where they're shoveling coal into the boiler, they're shoveling, they're working levers and gears and dials and wheels and all that stuff, and looking at gauges. And that to me is mechanic. We're dealing with, and at heart, we are still dealing with mechanical objects. We're dealing with mechanical tools. They are very complex. They're much more complex than they were even 5 years ago. But they're mechanical. They may rely on electronics to run now, but they are mechanical. Everybody knows that, or when an engine blows up, there's noise, there's rattles, there's big kabooms, there's smoke, there's steam, and even if it's an electrical problem that a car came in for, it didn't come in for an engine knock, it didn't come in for brake noise, it didn't come in for drive horn noise, it came in for an electrical problem. Sunroof doesn't open. Well, there's a whole number of objects in that system that could go wrong. And even if it's an electrical switch, you are mechanically removing that switch in order to replace it. Either out of the center console or the overhead console or the center console or wherever the switch is. If it's a mechanical problem in the gearing of the sunroof, the cable came apart, or cable snapped, or the motor blew apart, or whatever. You have to do mechanical work in order to do it. The diagnosis may be 70% electrical. You hook up a scan tool, etc. But at the very end of the day, a part needs to be mechanically replaced. So philosophically, I think the term mechanic is more apt and more appropriate for what we do. And the term mechanic does not just mean that we work on mechanical objects. There is a evolution of skill. Because think about when railroads came into existence and steam locomotives. You think there were people that had to diagnose why a locomotive wasn't running. They had to understand the theory behind steam thermodynamics and coal and pyromanics, if that's a word. The way that the coal burns. Some of it was done intuitively. I would imagine a lot of it was done intuitively. You have to spread the coal in this manner, not just pile it up in a pyramid inside the boiler, or inside the firebox. No, you have to spread it out like this, and that wasn't determined through a scientific engineering simulation or model on a computer, or back then, like in a ledger or whatever. That was determined by an engineer and a fireman shoveling coal into the firebox. And a lot of mechanics, a lot of auto repair, you can teach a ton of auto repair. I know I teach auto repair. You can teach it, but there is no replacement for actually doing it, actually performing the work. So I understand that I'm rambling a little bit, but no, but this is my method of working out my thoughts. I know that you guys are probably getting with it. I do not like the word technician. I feel like, and I don't usually use the word feel. I prefer to use the word think. But I really do feel like that word, technician, downplays what we actually do. There is a lot of intuition to this trade. There's a lot of previous physical feeling, physical mechanical movement, a lot of muscle memory, and a lot of subconscious diagnostics going on in auto repair. Not just the conscious hook the scan tool up, see what the data is, take electrical measurements, take physical measurements, and all that. There is still a lot of physical intuition, subconscious intuition, and mental and emotional intuition to this trade, and I think that's what a lot of what customers have in their minds of what a mechanic does. Like they also still have that kind of 1960s, 70s, 80s kind of media driven idea of what a mechanic is, where you bring the car in like, oh yeah, that's exactly what it is. Or it's making this noise. I know what that is. Or like Click and Clack, where they diagnose stuff over the phone. Click and Clack on NPR. So circling back one more time, I prefer the term mechanic. I think that is more apt and more relevant to what we actually do. So, I'm sure I'm going to get some auto repair professionals disagreeing with me, and that's cool. I'm one of you guys, so I totally understand what point you're trying to make. But to me, that the word technician is just not the right word. I think mechanic is the best word to use. All right, please leave a comment below. This discussion might actually fire off some discussion. So please leave a comment, and I'll talk to you next time.